Hello, puppet. What movie is that from? Honestly, that just popped into my head. What movie is that from? Hello, puppet. It's a creepy dude that says it. Hello, puppet. Type it into Google. Google it. Hello, puppet movie. By the way, is it Silence of the Lambs? No, it's not Silence of the Lambs. I wouldn't remember a quote from Silence of the Lambs. I'm not that creepy. Does anyone know? Hello, puppet. Come on. I gotta Google it. We're not starting Weather Where You Are until I Google it. And it's a really good Weather Where You Are. It's my winter recap, which is actually quite interesting. I did a lot of model digging for this. What is it? Hello, puppet. What movie? Pirates of the Caribbean. Jeez. All right, well, now that we've solved that, happy Friday, guys. We got 7 viewers on here. Okay, really interesting topic today. I want to take a look back at my winter forecast. I kind of, sometimes when I see model trends, or just data that speaks to me, I will do seasonal forecasts. And you guys know I did a winter forecast at the end of last year. I called for the coldest winter we'd seen in a decade. It did not end up being the coldest winter we'd seen in a decade. In fact, it was very warm. So I wanted to take a look back at that and then look at why and kind of talk about, is this a trend? So the thing that I based my winter forecast off is the El Nino. You guys know that we talk about El Nino, La Nina a lot. It's a cyclical pattern in the Pacific Ocean that has to do with the movement of warm and cold waters. Usually, the trade winds, which go the opposite direction that the winds up here in the northern hemisphere, so over North America, winds go from west to east. Further down to the south, near the equator, the winds go from east to west. Those are trade winds. Normally, that pushes a really warm pool of water off of the coast of Australia, but sometimes those winds weaken and the warm pool of water is able to kind of make its way east off the coast of South America. That is an El Nino. We were in a very strong El Nino pattern entering into the winter, and because of that, I was able to make my winter forecast. Usually, that cold and warm movement of water impacts the jet stream, which is winds at really high levels in the atmosphere, which impacts weather all over the world. But it really has an impact on our weather here in the United States in winter. And usually in El Nino months, the southeast is especially wet and especially cold, okay? I want to note that the northern half of the country in El Nino years usually is relatively dry, or warm and dry. I use that to predict a pretty cold and wet winter. What ended up happening? Well, it was not cold. Temperatures from December through March, on average, the average high was 60.8 degrees. That's 3 degrees above average. That's not super warm, but it's definitely warmer than normal. The only month, by the way, that we saw below average temperatures was January, and that was when we had that really cold blast for a week. It was wet, okay? We received over 20 inches of rain in 4 months, which is about half of our yearly rain that we got in the third of the year. So yes, it was wet, but it wasn't only warm here. The whole country was extremely warm this winter, guys. This was the average anomaly, so temperature compared to normal. You can see half of the country, including us here in the south, we're about 2 degrees above average. But the Great Lakes region was more than 10 degrees above average. Guys, that is so abnormal for the winter months in 8 states: North Dakota, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Michigan, Iowa, New York, Vermont, and New Hampshire all saw the warmest winter ever on record. Okay, that's not normal. So 8 states last year saw the warmest winter ever on record. So then you start thinking, okay, well, was it just a really warm winter? Yeah, it was, but then you start to look at, I started to dig into the data, and this is not just an anomaly, y'all. This is a trend, okay? This is a trend. So let's talk about it. The last major snowfall we saw here in North Georgia was 7 years ago, guys. It was December 2017, where parts of North Metro got about 6 to 12 inches. I remember Cobb County got almost a foot of snow. Y'all, that's 7 years ago. 7 years ago, the last major snowfall, okay? Charlotte, North Carolina, it's been over 800 days since they saw any measurable snowfall. Any measurable snowfall. Okay? Boston, which is a city that usually sees each winter about 3 feet of snow, it's been over 2 years now since they've had 4 inches of snow on the ground at one time, which is the lowest 5-year total on record. So we're seeing these trends of warmer winters with less snowfall. In addition to that, the Great Lakes, which are really usually in like the max part of the coldest part of winter, are usually covered by about 50% of ice coverage. In February of 2024, which is usually where when the max ice happens, only 2.7% of the Great Lakes was covered in ice, which was the lowest in 51 years. So all of this data, looking at this, it's not only us here in the South that are seeing warm conditions. It's not only warmer, but it's less snowy with less ice. So then I started to look at the trends, okay? This is from Rutgers Global Snow Lab. This is the max snow coverage each year at the peak of winter from 67 to 2003. You can see overall there is an extreme downward trend, and this is for the northern hemisphere. So this is for North America and Canada. There is an extremely significant downward trend of ice and snow coverage in North America in the peak winter months, and we are seeing that, and we're feeling that here, not only in the South, but all over the United States, especially in the East Coast, okay? So are winters becoming more mild? Well, the data says yes, okay? In a study done by Climate Central, it says since 1970, we've experienced shorter cold snaps, less extreme cold, and more unusually warm days. So, look, when we talk about, I know that it is a very touchy subject to talk about climate change, to talk about global warming, so I am just presenting the data to you. We can argue all day about what is causing the Earth to warm. Yes, weather and climate is cyclical. There's an upward, downward trend. We had ice ages. We had drastic periods in the past. Yes, of course. Also, humans are putting a lot of greenhouse gases into the atmosphere, which absorb heat and in turn warm the air. We can argue all day which one of those is causing the Earth to warm. That's not what I'm here to do. What I'm trying to do right now is present with you the information that shows that we can argue all day about what's causing it, but the Earth is warming, and it's warming at a rate that we have not seen before. What does that mean for us? Well, probably less snow days in the future. If we haven't seen a significant snowfall in 7 years and we were in an El Nino and we still didn't get any snowfall this past year, who knows? Who knows what the future holds? We didn't see a single ice event either. We only had, I believe, like 18 days where we hit freezing at the airport this year. So winter is the most rapidly warming season. And I was talking to my colleague, Rick Fulbaum, and he said, well, I don't think a lot of people are going to complain about that. And that's true, right? I mean, I think we're all kind of fine with milder winters. But it does have an impact on animals. It has an impact on farmers. It has an impact on schools, on kids, and it has an impact on us. So it's just something to think about. That's the data, presented it to you. What does it mean for spring? Well, this is the outlook issued by the Climate Prediction Center. They think there's just going to be a continuation of this pretty warm, unseasonably warm weather, especially for the Great Lakes region. But for us here, above normal temperatures are likely April, May, and June. They're also continuing to expect wetter than average conditions. What that could lead me to believe is we may see a longer severe weather season this year. So that's maybe the impact that it could have on spring. And I'm going to do another one of these next week that talks about the hurricane season. But I did mention this earlier this week. Colorado State just came out with their hurricane prediction. They're not NOAA, but they're one of the very trusted sources for hurricanes. And they issued the highest prediction ever for total storms this year because sea surface temperatures are at an all-time high. An all-time high. In February, the average global sea surface temperature maxed out. We've never seen it this high. And the warm ocean water is the number one ingredient that you need for hurricanes to form. So that is something that could also be impacted by this warmer winter that we had. Is hurricane season could be more significant this year. So there you go. There's some data for your Friday, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. That was like at least a month of research that I did there, and it's just extremely interesting to me. So I hope that you found it interesting as well. Have a great weekend, okay? This weekend's going to be beautiful. Jen will have your forecast in just about 20 minutes coming up on Atlanta News First at noon. It looks gorgeous. It is going to be quite windy this afternoon. Okay, enjoy the warm weather. Take advantage of it. Have a good weekend, guys.